everyone, welcome back to A-Level Lessons Online. Alright, welcome back to our microecon series. We're going to be moving on to our part 15 on Monopoly. Alright, so this is going to be our market structure. I'm going to be finishing up everything that we need to know for market structure. Alright, part 15 on Monopoly, it's going to be quite an easy part, I feel, because this part is really quite straightforward. Right, Monopoly firms, they have very fixed characteristics, very fixed behavior and performances that is definitely going to be much easier to learn for those of you guys who may be unsure. So let's just jump right into this video. Alright, so firstly, the market structures, like I've already gone through in my previous parts. I'm going to be covering them in a certain order. So firstly, we're always going to be wanting to look at characteristics followed by what their behavior is, and lastly, how do they perform. So characteristics, we'll look at it later on. It could be things like number of firms, the size of the firms, types of goods or services, presence of BTE and level of knowledge. Behavior could be their types of profits, the decisions that they make, any sort of other considerations that a business takes into account. And lastly, performance will always include efficiency and equity. Alright, so what are the characteristics of a monopoly? So firstly, you have to realize that a monopoly is a single supplier. So they are the only firm in the entire market. And what happens is that there's basically no other competitors. Okay, so they are the only firm that is actually going to be operating in a market. Right. It's also characteristic of them to to actually produce a unique good with no close substitutes. Okay, and they have high barriers to entry known as natural and artificial barriers. Okay, we'll dive into what natural and artificial barriers are after this. And they are also a price setter. Okay, mainly because they are the only firm. Definitely they're going to be the only one that will be setting the price. Right, since they're the only firm in the market, there's no one else who can actually compete, okay, to actually set a higher or a lower price than them. So they would hence face a falling AR, or otherwise known as a demand curve, as well as MR curves. Alright, we've already gone through what MR and AR curves are, okay, in my previous video on cost and revenue, so you can go and check that video out. Alright, so what are the barriers to entry for a monopoly firm? Right, so firstly, the barriers to entry, essentially what it means is that it restricts new firms from entering the market. So there are two types of barriers to entry. You have got natural barriers as well as artificial barriers. Right, so economies of scale, it could be one of your natural barriers. So a natural barriers means that it is something that is not created by the firm. Okay, it is natural. It is there isn't really a choice whether the firm wants to have this barrier or not. So a monopoly needs to be large, okay, in terms of its size, in order to enjoy economies of scale. When they are large, naturally economies of scale would come naturally. Right? So as a result, this reduces the AC and it lowers the average cost of production, hence prevents or deters potential firms from actually entering. Another one would be a control over an important resource. So barriers to entry will exist if a firm has control over an important input. Okay, like we have just mentioned, your monopoly firms tend to have ownership, okay, of the entire market, right? They're the only firm that operates, likely being, okay, that this product, okay, is a very unique good or service. Okay, as a result, this usually could only mean that it is a very important and very crucial resource, okay, that this monopoly firm actually has control over. Okay, so this is also known as a natural barrier. It's going to be very hard, okay, for another firm to come in and want to have the knowledge, okay, as well as the technology or the means, okay, to actually be able to produce this good or service as well. Alright, artificial barriers, okay, the first one you have is patents. So patents are basically exclusive rights, okay, to produce or sell an innovative product which prevents the entry of a new firm for a stipulated period of time. Okay, a patent is basically a certification that is issued, okay, when you actually invent a new product that has not existed before. Right, so licenses can also be one. Okay, for particular industries, this actually restricts the number of firms in the industry. So a license is given to a company for them to actually operate in the industry. So if you don't have a license, it could be a costly matter. Okay, it could be a costly uh kind of like a cert as well. Okay, that you need to purchase. Okay, next one will be copyright. So copyright is very common. It's legal protection to give the creator exclusive rights. And lastly, it will be any sort of transport costs or tariffs and quotas. So high taxes, limits on goods that can be imported into a country may also reduce the competition for monopoly. Right, so then we move on. Okay, what are the behaviors of a monopoly firm? So firstly, you have to realize that all firms, okay, likewise, okay, they aim to maximize profits. by producing at the MC equals to MR level. Right, so the market power of monopoly allows it to restrict output below their optimal level and charge a higher price so as to increase profits. Okay, we call this in economics artificial scarcity. Okay, whereby a monopoly can actually, because they have all the power to set their own prices since they're the only firm, okay, they can actually set the prices at a higher price level, okay, than your PC firm level, as well as reduce the output so as to actually increase the overall profits, okay, that they can actually reap from production. So hence they have a lower output than PC firms and a higher price than PC firms. So this results in a fall in consumer surplus and a rise in producer surplus. Alright, so price discrimination is actually the main part, okay, of this entire video, I feel. Monopoly, okay, they are very, very characteristic. Reason being is that they can practice price discrimination, right? The part on artificial scarcity that I've just gone through before this slide, right, you can always go ahead and go and study up more on that, right? Just understand, okay, that they essentially set a price that's higher than a PC firm and a quantity that's lower. Right, overall, this allows them to increase their overall revenue as well as their overall profits. Okay, on the other hand, PD, okay, what it is, okay, price discrimination, is the practice of charging different prices for the same product or service that is not due to cost differences. So there are three conditions for price discrimination. Firstly, is the control of the market supply. Right, so firms must be able to control the market supply so that when it charges a higher price, there will not be any competitors who can undersell the good at a lower price. So this is the first condition, okay, of PD. The second condition is that markets must be separated. So markets for the good must be separated so that those paying the lower prices are unable to resell them to those that are paying the higher prices. Okay, we'll dive more into this type of conditions later on. And lastly is the different PED, okay, the price elasticity of demand in separate markets, okay, so that the total profits can be increased by charging different prices in the different markets, right? So for instance, in one market where the firm recognizes that the demand is more price inelastic, they can actually increase the price in light of a less than proportionate change in quantity demanded, okay, and this will cause the total revenue to increase. So we will look at these types of PD and how they are practiced in the specific degrees of PD. So you've got the different forms of price discrimination. Right, firstly, you've got the first degree price discrimination. So this is when a monopolist sells each and every unit of good at the maximum price that consumers are willing to pay, okay, hence resulting in zero consumer surplus. So this is a very, very simple PD, okay. What happens is that the monopoly firm, okay, they will be able to, let's say, analyze, okay, from their information that they have, okay, let's say a consumer is willing to pay a certain amount, okay, in order for that good or service. So all the monopoly will do is just charge that price. Okay, be it however high it may be. Okay, let's say if the firm the consumer is willing to go to a higher price, the monopoly will be even happier. Right? So this is the first degree PDK. We don't really see this being practiced as often. Next one is second degree price discrimination. So it's when they set a uniform price per unit for an initial specific quantity, followed by a different price for every subsequent and additional quantity. Right, this is a special type of PDK and it's quite frequently practiced, whereby what the firm does, okay, is that they first decide to set a very, very base price, okay, and then as you continue to buy their goods and services, the price will increase over time, okay, so this will cause their overall profits, okay, to actually increase. Alright, last one is the third degree PDK. This is the most common form of price discrimination that you will see in markets today, practiced by monopolies that occur or that are found all over the world. So this occurs when a monopolist charges different prices for the same good or service in different markets due to the differences in your price elasticity of demand. Okay, so like I said, let me draw it over here. So in a PED, which is less than 1, okay, a monopoly would increase the price because this will result in a fall in quantity demanded less than proportionately. Right? On the other hand, for a PD that is more than 1, which is meaning that it's going to be price elastic. Okay, the market has got goods that are very, very price elastic in demand. Okay, what happens is that a fall in price will lead to an increase in quantity demanded more than proportionally. So you realize that both of which would help to increase the overall total revenue. Right? I've already gone through this in my PED video. Go and check it out if you're still unsure. But this is basically how they would be able to discriminate the prices in different markets. So what are the effects? Okay, we're looking at the performance of a monopoly firm now. Okay, what are the effects of PED? Okay, the previous part, in the last slide, okay, I've already gone through what your third degree PD is. Okay, it tends to be practiced a lot in markets such as your public transport markets. Okay, if you want to take note of certain examples. So now we'll look at what are the effects of your price discrimination, right? So the merits of PD, okay, is that it can be based on differences in income level, which can be desirable, okay, as it follows or it allows the lower income consumers to buy a product that they would be otherwise unable to afford if it was sold at a single price. Right, so this is when we use third degree price discrimination. Because of the differences in PED, we are able to actually reduce the prices and allow for an increase in the overall quantity demanded more than proportionately, and this will allow for the lower income to be able to afford this specific good and services in this market. Right, another one is that it allows for cross subsidization. Okay, what does cross subsidization mean? Okay, it is when the profitable market can actually subsidize the unprofitable market. Okay, this enables goods to be produced even in the less profitable markets. So any sort of profits that are gained from the market that is receiving more revenue, okay, can actually be used. This revenue can be used to subsidize the other market, okay, the separated market that is seen to not be doing as well. Right, so that's the one of the merits of PD. Okay, it's because like we've mentioned our conditions, right? We actually separated the markets. So the market that's doing better can actually help out the market that's doing worse. Alright, so for first degree PD, okay, the firm charges the maximum price, hence your price is equivalent to MR. We've already gone through this before. At the equilibrium price, okay, when MR equals to MC, okay, when you are profit maximizing, okay, allocative efficiency is achieved. Okay, so since your price equals to MR, your P equals to MC. Right, so go ahead and take some time to work out the causal links for this part. Okay, it's very important. But this is mainly for your first degree PDK because your firm charges the maximum price that a consumer is willing to pay. Okay, so hence allocative efficiency, your P equals to MC is going to be achieved. Alright, but what are the merits of price discrimination? So firstly is that there is zero consumer surplus for first degree PD, and there's also higher monopoly profits for the producer. Hence, a fall in consumer surplus, this would worsen the income distribution, right? So when you practice price discrimination, okay, definitely the producers are going to be earning much more. Okay, when the producers earn a much greater income, okay, it actually means that on the losing end are going to be your consumers who are paying more for these goods. Right, so definitely your income distribution will be worsened, especially if you're looking at lower income, because more of your revenue, okay, will be going to the higher income, the richer minorities who are found in these big monopoly firms. Alright, then what are the other merits of a monopoly? Okay, if you're looking at, let's say, EOS instead, okay, so we're moving away from price discrimination, we're looking at the overall merits of a monopoly. So since they are the only supplier, okay, they can produce on a larger scale and reap benefits of EOS, like I've gone through in the first slide. So this allows them to lower the cost of production, it reduces their MC, hence a fall in price and an increase in their output. Okay, this is provided that the monopoly firm, okay, chooses not to practice artificial scarcity, okay, which means that they are going to be producing and reaping the benefits, okay, and passing these benefits on to consumers. Hence, their MC curve will actually be found much lower than the PC firm, allowing them to produce at a quantity that is higher over here and a price that is lower than a PC firm. So it kind of like works counterintuitively, right? Complete opposite from what we thought about in the first slide. So you really have to be careful, okay? Does a firm, you have to, this is one of the assumptions that you need to address, okay? Is the monopoly actually producing where when it is actually passing its cost down to its consumers? Or is it actually producing, okay, at a stage whereby it is simply by cost being passed on to consumers, I mean cost savings, okay, as a result of US, or is it actually practicing artificial scarcity? Okay, if it's doing the latter, which is producing and creating this artificial scarcity, okay, your curve would actually be above, okay, this MC firm or your PC firm, sorry, for your marginal cost, okay, it will be above the PC firm. Hence, you will have a lower quantity and a higher cost, higher price to consumers, which is not beneficial. Okay, there's also room for greater innovation. Okay, so supernormal profits which are generated in the short run and long run provides the incentive for firm to actually raise money to finance in R&D, hence allowing them to develop new products and processes, and this achieves dynamic efficiency. Hereby there's a better quality and variety of products for the consumers, and it actually helps to reduce the average cost of production in the long run. Right, so R&D can definitely be something that is reaped from your monopoly firms, okay, because they produce when they invest in R&D, okay, they produce goods that are not only more inelastic but of a greater variety and dynamic range as well. Alright, then what are the demerits of a monopoly? Okay, so in certain cases, when a monopoly does not practice your first degree PD, okay, it can actually result in allocative inefficiency. Okay, so this is due to the artificial scarcity created. Definitely, your price is now more than your marginal cost, right? Okay, because it is producing at a higher price and at a lower output. Okay, so this will lead to a fall in consumer surplus, a greater deadweight loss to society, and market failure. So this is in the case when a monopoly produces or creates this artificial scarcity. And there could also be an inequitable distribution of income, like I've said. So because they can earn supernormal profits in the long run due to higher barriers to entry, income is being redistributed from the consumers to the monopolists, right? So because of these supernormal profits, right, they are generating so much of this supernormal profits in the long run and the short run. Okay, it means that more of your consumers' money are actually going to the monopolists, and hence they would have greater income, greater revenue, greater profits. Okay, that is why they are able to have sustained supernormal profits. And one more thing would be this thing called cross inefficiency or X inefficiency. So this is when there's a lack of competition faced by monopolists. It can actually lead to complacency. So the little incentive for the monopolist to monitor its costs and cater to the needs of the consumer will cause an increase in AAC. So this is when in the case, okay, whereby due to a lack of competition, okay, the monopoly firm may actually produce at a higher cost. Okay, they may not be very wary, okay, of lowering their overall cost. Okay, as well as they may actually not choose not to actually create more innovative products. Okay, because of the lack of competition, there isn't a need to compete with anyone else to tell the consumers why their product is better. Right, so this is something that they may be facing, which can lead to an overall rise in your average cost. Alright, so we move on to the concept of a contestable market as we're wrapping up this video. So what is a contestable market? Okay, it arises when there is no or low cost to entry and exit for firms into an industry. Okay, meaning to say that MC firms definitely are in a contestable market. Your oligopoly firms are definitely also going to be in a contestable market. I'm not saying that there is low cost to entry in oligopoly markets, okay, but there is a lot of competition because of the presence of other competitive firms. Okay, so there are costs which may be irrevocable when a firm ceases production and exits an industry. This is known as your sunk costs. So monopoly will be kept at a competitive level due to the threat of potential competitors. Okay, hence there is a need for continual competition, this thing called a contestable market, to ensure that the monopoly operates at its lowest cost. Okay, and this may require government intervention. So all in all, why do we have to bring in this concept of contestable market in this video, okay, on monopoly? It's very simply because you have to realize that a monopoly can definitely face inefficiencies because of a lack of competition. Okay, which is why there is a need for different policies. Okay, we'll explore policies soon to actually be set out, okay, by the government to ensure that a monopoly constantly faces the threat of potential rivals, okay, potential new firms that may want to come in and take over this monopoly. Okay, this would cause the monopoly to always be on their feet and ensure that their costs are kept low so that they are competitive and they can set competitive prices, allowing and deterring, okay, any possible rival firms from actually entering the market. So all in all, your exam requirements for this topic is quite simple. Likewise, like the other topics, you just need to explain the characteristics, behavior, and the performance of a monopoly. So compare the various market structures and acknowledge the differences and how they function differently in different markets. And lastly, this can tend to come out for your higher mark essays, right? So all in all, monopoly, you have to understand that it is a single firm, okay, that faces a lot of inefficiencies, okay, usually when there is a lack of a contestable market, right? So they have various different ways of discriminating prices, the three different ways, and they can definitely choose to set a price that is definitely much higher should they want to, right? Because they control the overall supply of the market. So monopoly firms, okay, is quite simple, but at the same time, you need to ensure that you explain their benefits and their limitations, okay, or the drawbacks very, very clearly, right? Because they definitely do have both sides to them. And they are very, very different, okay, from oligopoly firms, from your MC firms, from your PC firms. Alright, so go ahead and study this part on monopoly very well. Okay, I hope this video has at least given you some insights as to the different behaviors, different characteristics, and how they perform in the actual market itself. If not, if you have any questions, you can just leave it in the comment section below and I will answer them. If not, that is all I actually have, okay, for this video on monopoly. This actually marks the end of our market structure, like markets, right? We'll be moving on to policies as well as market failure very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. Okay, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, as well as to subscribe to the channel if you have not, okay, because it's free. It doesn't cost you anything and you can always change your mind later if you choose to do so. Right, so that is all I have. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Bye bye.